So get out a writing utensil and we're going to start this. Maybe. Let's try that again. Okay. All right, so the title of this is The Dog of Pompeii. And remember, whenever we have a story, we don't just jump in. We always look at the title because we've learned that sometimes the theme is in the title. Just to review, what is theme? We watched some videos last week. We talked about theme. You've already been taught theme from Mrs. Stoltz. Chelsea? Well, remember, it's different than the main idea. Kind of close. If we think about theme as the life lesson, okay? Think of theme as the life lesson. It's broad. It's not narrow. Broad means to be wide, okay? And remember, some themes are do unto others, right? What are some other themes that we've learned about? Chelsea? Right, so have confidence in yourself. Very good. And there are lots of other themes. I just wanted to review and give you some more just so you know theme. And so when I saw this story, obviously we all know what a dog is. I know a little bit about Pompeii. I know that that is the city that they found. A volcano had erupted, and basically all the ash and lava buried the city that was at the base of the volcano, and it was called Pompeii. And I remember seeing this when I was in 5th grade, looking at the books that we were being taught from, and the people were still crouched. Some of them were holding babies, and they were mummified in that position. So I know a little bit about Pompeii. Remember, typically we would do a KWL, but that's what I'm doing kind of in my head. Because remember, I told you I like you to actively read. Typically, in a typical year, I would not require you to. I wouldn't be taking points because it should have been automatic. But we haven't, been in school a whole lot this year, so you still need to mark up your packet. Always, you'll never turn in a empty packet. This goes from now until you get out of college, even the rest of your life. But the reason I have you do that is because hopefully you do it in your brain. And basically what we just did the K in our brain. And then we're going to read, and hopefully after we read this introduction, we'll have some questions that we want answered. So the key idea, and they probably shouldn't use the key idea, because that's going to confuse you, won't it, Chelsea, do you think? This is probably kind of the theme. Some people take risks for the excitement of it, whether they are trying a new skateboarding trick or auditioning for a play. Others, such as a student entering a spelling bee, takes risks hoping to gain a reward. In The Dog of Pompeii, one character risks his life simply to help someone else. List it. So brainstorm a list of situations in which you would be willing to take a risk for another person. Compare your list with those of your classmates. What difference and similarities do you see? Now it's going to be interesting because you and I are of different generations. It was a lot different when I grew up as a kid, and if I would do this with, my grandparents who are now deceased, theirs would really be different than mine because they grew up during the Great Depression. So go ahead and brainstorm things that you would be willing to take a risk for another person. Remember, when you brainstorm, there's no right or wrong answer. Just write down whatever comes to your brain. Take about a minute to do that. Does someone want to share? What are some ideas you wrote down where you would be willing to um, take a risk for someone else? Chelsea? Very good. Right. Saving somebody from a fire, which you want to make sure you use, good judgment with that, right? Because, but I mean, I don't know. I guess I would go in too, even though it would probably mean, you could possibly die too. That's a very, very good one. What are some other things that you would be willing to risk for somebody else? Natalie? I'm sorry, what? Oh, yeah. Saving somebody from drowning. I never thought of that one. That's a good one. Anybody else? Okay. I didn't hear the first part, but what was the first part of that? Oh, yes. Like, that's right. Like organ donors. Sometimes people will give organ donors the ability to walk. That was a good one because sometimes we take that for granted, don't it? So right. So somebody this morning said any situation, no matter what. Um, Somebody added, it depends on who it is. Well, we want to get away from that. We don't want to be selfish people. It doesn't matter who it is because that's a person, right? And everybody's life is valuable. So I put full fire. I put a school situation because obviously I'm a teacher, and unfortunately, there have been situations where people have gotten into schools, and it's my job to protect you and do anything it can to protect you. I mean, you're young kids, your life's ahead of you. Mine's not, so I'd do anything to protect you guys. Bullying, fights. I'm having a little issue right here, so that's why I put that there. A car breaking down. I saw a car this weekend that was broken down. The woman had a flat tire, but somebody was helping her. I You want to be careful with that just because of the way people are. But if you have like your husband with you or somebody else with you, I would stop and say, "Do you guys need any help?" And typically people have cell phones and they would say no. But this one here, I would still do that, but it would depend on who was with me. If it was at nighttime, there's no way I'd probably do that. Um, if it was on a back street, probably wouldn't do it. But this was on I-80, so lots of people. So yeah, so you want to be smart when you make your decisions, but yeah, you want to value people's life. So on the next page, we didn't get to this morning, so you guys get a clean copy of me showing you my thoughts. So a literary analysis, theme versus topic. Remember some of those videos? Main idea is different than theme. The main idea is like the topic, basically, or what it's all about. Most stories center around a theme or an overall message about life that the writer shares with readers. So I'm going to underline that because I want to be able to identify and separate what theme is. And if I remember, Mrs. Winter told me it's a life lesson. This says overall message about life. A story's theme is different from its topic or what the story is about. So yeah, so they are calling the topic, I'm just going to put main idea because I know that main idea is what the story is all about. Okay. The main idea includes the elements of plot or the events, remember? And so they have a little graphic organizer here to help us. Topic, the length can usually be stated in a word or two. Example, love. Theme, it's more complex than a topic, usually described in a sentence. And if we look on the first page, you can see that, yeah, those that we could make them into complete sentences, but those were kind of sentences, statements. And so the example of theme for love, love can help people solve their differences. And the topic here would be love, and you would write about events that you could do to show love. One topic of the Dog of Pompeii is friendship. So remember, the topic or the main idea can be stated in a few words. As you read, look for the larger message the author wants to share. Remember that characters, actions, and images can all be clues to the author's message. Now, we've talked about this. That's why we do active reading. We interact with the text. That's why we've talked about indirect characterization. We get into this a little bit deeper in 8th grade because we analyze. That is our standard in 8th grade. Remember, indirect characterization is that Reels video that I showed you. Some of you have missed that. It's with Frozen. Remember, indirect characterization, when you look at a character, you look at their relationships, their emotions, their actions, their looks, and their speech, and then you make a judgment of that character. Reading strategy, reading historical fiction. Historical fiction is one of my most favorite genres. I'm throwing that vocab word out. What's a genre? This is like one of the first words I taught you. What's the genre? If you don't know this, you need to make sure that you learn this. The genre is the type or category. It helps you organize things. Music has a lot of genres. There's country, there's jazz, classical, hard rock. So you get the picture, all right? So then you would put the songs in these genres. You wouldn't put rap up here with country, would you? Because people who listen to country typically probably don't want to listen to rap. And so that's how you organize things, is by creating the genre. In the classroom, not all of them are out now because you guys aren't allowed to get in onto my shelves, but you can see biographies here. I typically label the shelves so you know what genre it is. Because not everybody likes to read biographies. Not everybody likes to read Up Here's My Fantasy. That way you know which shelf to go to, so you're not wasting your time looking for books in a genre that you know you won't read. I probably will never read fantasy. I just can't do it. I've tried because I'm a reading teacher and I want to read those kinds of books, but I don't like that. I don't like that genre. It just does not interest me. It's hard for me. Historical fiction is one of my most favorite, though. You know that fiction means what? True or false? It is. Fiction is false, but then I get confused because now it's talking about historical. And I know that things that are historical usually are true. So let's see what historical fiction is. Writers of historical fiction use a combination of real and made-up settings, events, and characters from the past. The story you are about to read uses a real place, the town of Pompeii, as its setting. It also describes a real event, a volcanic eruption. As you read, make a list of details that the author uses to make the story's setting and events come alive. Be sure to include information about food, clothing, transportation, houses, entertainment, and so on. So, for example, well, you guys might not know. Do you know that movie Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio? Okay, most people do. It's not, I can't believe how old it is. I actually saw that in the movie theater. But that is historical fiction. Jack and Rose were not real people. Their story was not real. but the events surrounding them obviously were real. The people that were on the boat that were the characters, they were real people. Like John Jacob Astor was real. Um, Bruce Ismay was real. The captain was real. So you have real people, but within those real people and the real events of the Titanic, you have a love story that was created by James Cameron, and he created that with elements of plot. So that's historical fiction. Here's the vocabulary words for this story. Remember, these need to be put into your digital notebook. If you're new to my class, I know there are a pile of you. You need to have a digital notebook up and running and shared with me. If you have trouble doing that, there's a video I will send you, or in homeroom we can get it worked out, because I will be checking that digital notebook here in March just to make sure everybody has it. Yes, because I've gotten like 12 new 7th graders. And so I'm telling them now so that they have time, so they're not blindsided when I check it for points. You just keep up with it when we do stories. You'll get your points, easy points. So Louis Untermeyer uses the following words to craft his tale of an ancient city. To see how many you know, try to complete each phrase with the appropriate word. So I'm going to read the words so you hear how they're pronounced, and then let's number them like we did last time. 1, 2. So you just have to write the number in the blank. Number 1 is agonize. Number 2 is dislodge. Number 3 is ponder. Number 4 is corrupt. And number 5 is emerge. So you need to take a few minutes and put the numbers in the blanks. Okay, can somebody read number 1 and then tell me what number you put in the blank? Number 1, Derek? The shaking is able to corrupt huge boulders. Who agrees? Isabella, do you have a different answer? Dislodge, right. Dislodge means to knock out of place. Number 2, Elijah, sorry. Can you read the sentence? Right, no, number 2, put number 1 in the blank. If you agonize, that means you're struggling with a decision or what's going on or something that's bothering you. Number 3, Chelsea. Yes, emerge means to come to the surface or come out from hiding. 4, Natalie. To corrupt the soil, making it unusable. Yes. Now you notice that when you saw corrupt, you probably were like, oh, I know what that means, right? But now you see that corrupt it's called a multiple meaning word. And you need to realize that sometimes words have multiple meanings, and you have to use context clues to figure out which meaning that word is. So the corrupt that we know means probably to be what? My brain's dead. I can't find a synonym. To be corrupt means to be broken, not lawful. Very good. But that doesn't fit down here, does it? So the lava begins to corrupt the soil, which kind of similar. So in this context, corrupt means to be broken up, right? Broken apart, which they're kind of related, aren't they? And so the last one would be number 3. Modern archaeologists ponder the town's ruins. Ponder means to look at closely, to wonder about, to think about. So the last thing we're going to do is we are going to talk about the author, passion for poetry. And I think you are doing poetry in English, are you? Though as a young man, he worked several jobs within his family's jewelry business. Louis Untermeyer was also constantly writing. He eventually retired from the jewelry business in order to devote more time to writing. Although Untermeyer wrote many stories, poetry was his true passion. During his lifetime, he published more than 100 books and developed friendships with famous poets such as Robert Frost and E. E. Cummings. I know most of us know Robert Frost, but both of those men were very famous, are very famous um, poets. So background, Mount Vesuvius erupts. So that must be the volcano that erupted. And I wonder where it's at. In the year AD 79, so that was a long time ago, the volcanic mountain Vesuvius erupted in southern Italy. Okay, so this was my question. That was my A. Now here's my T. I'm tracking down my answer. It's in southern Italy. I didn't know they had mountains in Italy. I don't study Italy. I don't know much about it. It poured burning lava and ashes over the countryside and buried the nearby cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. So not just Pompeii, but this other city was buried, which I didn't know. Of Pompeii's estimated population of 20,000, that's a lot of people. So it wasn't a very small city. At least 2,000 were killed. Pompeii lay undisturbed for almost 1,700 years. Wow. So undisturbed means nobody went there for 1,700 years until its ruins were discovered in the late 1500s. The remains of the city preserved by volcanic ash present a picture of life in the Roman Empire as if it had been frozen in time. Wow. So remember, this is nonfiction, and we read nonfiction differently than we do fiction because our purpose for reading nonfiction is to learn and remember. And so we constantly are pausing more when we read nonfiction.